Spears welcoming you to a Thursday, April the 14th, 2011 episode of The Exchange. Joining me, as always, Charlie Evers, Marion Michaels, and Fritz The Nite Owl, joined by a pal I'm sure a lot of you already recognize, but we'll introduce her in just a moment. We do want to get to our sponsors. Today's episode of The Exchange is brought to you by Peacock Water Conditioning. Their mission is simple. They want you to love their water. Located at 1800 Marion Marysville Road, right here in Marion. There's also a location in Bucyrus. Call them at 740-387-6312. Also brought to you today by Bubby Man Games. Buy, sell, trade new and vintage games. 131 West Center Street, right here in Marion. Call them at 341-7009. Open Tuesday through Saturday, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m., closed Sunday and Monday. Brought to you by the Ohio Neck and Back Pain Relief Centers, Scott M. Gray, Doctor of Chiropractics, across from the Marion Center between TSC and Kroger, telephone number 386-6580, and brought to you by Night Owl Theater, located on the net at www.fritzlives.com. To receive updates, email nightowltv@yahoo.com, and that's NITEOWLTV@yahoo.com. We're going to start today's episode with This Day in History with Charlie Evers.
Yes, indeed, and a lot of things happened on this day. In fact, in the first part of April, quite a few historical events. For instance, a week after the assassination of Martin Luther King, the Civil Rights Act of 1968 was signed into law by President Johnson. The law prohibited discrimination in housing, protected civil rights workers, and expanded the rights of Native Americans. And of course, as we mentioned before, the Civil War began this first part of April. 1861, wasn't it?
1861. Yes. And now, if you don't know what to do tonight, if you have some spare time on your hands and you want to watch a great movie, you're going to get a recommendation from a guy who knows a little bit about movies, I think. It's time for the Footpic with Fritz the Nite Owl. Fritz.
And thank you, Scott. And tonight we have, glad to recommend a comedy for you. If you were around in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, one of the big comedy teams, probably the biggest in the 50s on movies and TV, were Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, a.k.a. Martin and Lewis. And the movie they made in 1953, I'm going to tell you about tonight. You'll enjoy it if you're a golfer. You'll enjoy it if you like comedy, music, over-the-top Jerry Lewis type humor, laid-back, easygoing. What am I doing here? Dino. It just got everything going for it. The movie is called The Caddy. 1953, I give it 3 stars out of 5. Not Martin and Lewis's best, not their worst, but a very, very watchable film I think the whole family will enjoy. And as I say, if you're a golf nut, you'll definitely enjoy all of the scenes at Pebble Beach and a lot of the great golfers who actually make cameos in this film. There's Ben Hogan, Sam Snead, Byron Nelson, and many, many more. And of course, the story basically is Jerry Lewis is an aces golfer, but he freezes on the course, so he can't play in the tournaments. But Dino is just a natural at it, so Jerry gets him into the tournaments, and Dino is the golfer. The movie is also notable in that this is the movie in which Dean Martin sang "That's Amore," which was one of his signature songs for years and years and years. He sang "That's Amore." The single he did was a huge, huge seller, but in the movie he actually does it as a duet with Jerry Lewis, and a lot of people forget that originally "That's Amore" was a Martin and Lewis duet. Dino was always fun to watch, and Martin and Lewis, as I say, at this time were at the very, very top of the polls in both movies and TV. The year was 1953. If you don't remember Martin and Lewis, well, of course, Jerry is still around on the MS telethon every year. But if Dino was starting to fade from the younger memories, ask your grandmama, your grandpapa, your older brother or sister. The Caddy. If you like golf, you'll like the movie Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, The Caddy, 1953.
a can't miss. I was told on yesterday's program that I didn't look lively, so I'm really trying to move around today and be as lively as possible. Trying to get with the program. I'm just going to give big smiles to everything everybody says. I'll be as lively as you can be.
There we are.
Joining us today, we have one of the all-time great newspaper columnists in the city of Marion, a good friend of mine, Brenda Donegan. Brenda, thank you for coming in today.
Well, thank you, Scott, for inviting me.
Now, we're going to do a segment every Thursday on this program, Brenda Donegan's Ohio, where you will pick a place in Ohio, you will pick a person, living or dead, doesn't matter, and you will profile them on this program. And who have you chosen today?
Well,
or what?
Well, I have chosen my roots. I grew up in Logan County, Ohio, and I realized that Logan County has been on the news quite a bit lately with some not so good news. But that's where I grew up, and there's a few things about Bellefontaine that I wanted to tell you, because with the price of gas, a lot of people are going to be looking for day trips, things close by that they could do for entertainment for the summer. So I thought I would start with that. Bellefontaine is the county seat of Logan County, and it has many historical things that you can go see. First of all, the first concrete street in America was built, and it's called McKinley Street. The shortest street in America is also in Bellefontaine. And Camel Hill is the highest point in Ohio at 1,550 feet above sea level. If you're a skier, there's Mad River Mountain close by. If you're interested in history, there's Macachee and Piat Castles in West Liberty, about 5-6 miles south of Bellefontaine. Years ago, Indian Lake was a well-known summer vacation spot. It still is a destination for a lot of people who just want to relax, but back in I think it started in 1924, if I remember right, the Sandy Beach Amusement Park, and closed in the early 80s. But that was the destination for everybody. It was called $1 Million Playground, and everybody went there for fun, relaxation, and amusement. I remember going with my parents as a child. They danced a lot, and going to the dance hall and dancing to big name bands. And we kids, of course, weren't allowed in the dance hall, so we had to sit outside and watch them. And it was a big thing for us on Saturday evening when everybody would go to Indian Lake and go over and listen to the big bands and dance. Also, now in the area, there are at least 4 Amish communities. I know a lot of people think of Northeast Ohio as more Amish, but they do have 4 little settlements around Bellefontaine. I have taken residents where I work over to my friends' homes for lunch. I have 2 friends over there that open their homes for catered meals. And am I allowed to give their names?
Oh, yeah, you can. If they don't mind, I don't mind.
Okay. Well, Marvin and Nancy Hellmuth are 2 of my friends, and Jonas and Edna Hirschberger. And if you'd be interested in ever make contact with them, just get a hold of me. But we go over there, and of course, everything they do is homemade. Everything. Even from the mashed potatoes, you can see them even as you arrive, still putting in the finishing touches to the potatoes, and the chicken is just out of this world. I asked Nancy one day, I said, what is the secret to your nice, tender, juicy chicken? You know what I found out? She soaks it overnight in milk.
Really?
Yes.
Hold
Soaks it overnight in milk, browns it a little bit, puts it in the oven and bakes it, and it is scrumptious. You just can't believe how good it is. Well, there's a couple of other things about the Bellefontaine area that I'd like to talk about. The Mills brothers, of course, were born in Piqua, but they grew up in Bellefontaine. And they became the first male African-American quartet to go on and make several albums. One of my favorite songs is You Always Hurt the One You Love. Mm-hmm. And the other one I could think of is Paper Doll.
How about Glowworm?
Glowworm was one of them.
They were my father's favorite group.
Oh, they were fantastic, and I still love to listen to their music. There's a group yet, but I believe only one person in the group is actually a descendant of the Mills. But they had such close harmony, which often happens with siblings, that they have such close harmony that you just can't get enough of that good music. And they sang a lot of a cappella as well, and as well as with instruments. Very, very well known, very fine family.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Dean Martin, who was from Steubenville,
Right.
Said one time on one of his variety shows or something of that nature that he learned to sing, or the best people he ever heard sing were the Mills Brothers. I think I heard that at some point.
They were also the first African-American vocal group to be on national radio.
Is that right?
Yep.
Wow.
From little old Bellefontaine, Ohio, which currently their population's about 15,000, so it's not a real big city. And the other one is someone that I'm not too familiar with, but some people may be, and that's Louis Vito.
Italian, obviously.
Italian, obviously. He was born in Columbus, but he moved to Bellefontaine, and the family moved to Bellefontaine because of Mad River Mountain and his interest in snowboarding. So he went on to participate in many of them, and he was also participated in the 2010 Winter Olympics. So anything else I can tell you about Bellefontaine, Scott?
Well, I'll tell you what. I have been to Bellefontaine for two reasons. There used to be, and I'm not sure if it's still there or not, but there used to be a resort. At one point it was called Getaway Lakes. At one point it was called Maple Ridge. But it was a beautiful place, hidden by trees, brush. But it had a game house. It had a lake. It had a swimming pool that was built. It had cabins. It had all kinds of things, and I used to love to go to Bellefontaine as a child. To go to that, it was Getaway Lakes then, and I think they changed. And putt-putt golf. They had putt-putt golf course there that was really neat. And I have an uncle who to this day lives in Indian Lake, and I had never been to Indian Lake until he moved there a few years ago. Indian Lake is more built up than I thought. I thought it was going to be a depressed area because my grandmother would tell stories of going to the activities over there, but they're not there anymore. But there are fast food places, there are restaurants, there are little pubs and diners. It's not Route 95 in Marion, but there are places and things to do. And it's a beautiful lake.
It is.
Well, Brenda, I'm glad you're doing this series. I think it's an excellent idea. And I did the same thing when I was a reporter. I had a special program. It was once a week that I would go all over Ohio. I started, in the 80s, we had a gas situation just like we have now. Of course, it wasn't as high then, but it was, for the period of time, it was outrageous. And I did reports where you could go on a tank of gas. And I went here to see the Piat and did a report on the Piat castles.
Aren't they beautiful? French architecture, beautiful, beautiful castles.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they're not handicap accessible, but if you have young children, and especially if they're interested in history, it'd be a wonderful
There
place
are
to
a
take
lot of
them.
wonderful places in Ohio to visit.
Oh.
There really are. I found that out when I did that series.
I should mention that Bellefontaine currently, one of the best puppet makers and puppeteers on the planet is in Bellefontaine. Her name
Really?
is Pam Close, and she has an operation there called Close Puppets. But her puppets have been seen on national television and have been on a lot of the national puppet shows. And she used to do, at the Ohio Theater in Columbus, she used to do the Halloween show and a lot of music, a lot of the special programs. Her puppets were featured. And as I said, we're not talking about little stockings over her hand. We're talking major league puppets. Pam Close, and I think the place is called Close Puppets in Bellefontaine.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
That would be a neat place to go.
Very, very visual.
Yes, especially if you can see them in process of doing the
yes.
project. That would be a wonderful tour.
You know, it's interesting because Ohio, you don't, I think of it if you grow up in Ohio as it being a big hub for things. But really it is. I mean, generally, we've had presidents, one from this city.
I think we have more presidents from Ohio than any other states.
8, I believe.
I think that's right.
Yes.
We have a neat thing. So many showbiz people came from Ohio.
Yes.
Phyllis Diller, Hugh Downs.
Bob Hope? No, he came from
he
Pennsylvania.
spent his childhood here.
Yeah.
Clark Gable was Ohio, was he? Cadiz.
At one-
I think.
yeah.
Yes.
Roy
Cadiz.
Rogers.
Roy
also.
Rogers.
Roy Rogers.
Yeah.
A
Yep.
lot of people came from Ohio, the Exodus. I'd like to see the Exodus Betty White lived here in Bell Center
Oh,
That's
did
for a
she?
while. Yes, she did.
That's my hometown.
Bell
Bell Center.
No, Brenda, I'm going to put you on the spot here because I know this is true. Who did you have what TV personality who's still around, did you have a little bit of I'll say relationship with from Bell Center? I think it was Bell Center.
That I had a relationship with.
Channel 4 Gardening Man.
Oh.
Yes.
Yes, Tom McNutt.
Yes.
Tom McNutt, yes, I did. He came to Bell Center. That was his very first teaching position. And actually, he rented a room from our next door neighbors. So Tom and I, he was not only the teacher and I was the student, but we were friends, and we've been friends for years.
Tom is a neat
I
guy.
worked with him at Channel 4.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's been down to Marion so many times. He is such a fascinating fellow.
I had him on Morning Magazine when I did Morning Magazine at WMRN.
Nobody knows horticulture
Oh,
like
yeah.
Tom
And he
McNutt.
wrote a book, and I've got his book.
He did Tom's Green Thumb or something
Right.
like that. Very good book.
And he knows everything. People don't seem to stump him at all when they call him with those gardening questions.
Yes.
It's amazing. One other person from Bell Center who is pretty well known played basketball at Ohio State with Fred Taylor in the 1960s was Dick Ricketts, known as Little Dandy Dick, if any of you remember him.
Charlie, did you ever have any experiences with Bellefontaine?
Yes, I sure did. One of my trips across Ohio, we stayed overnight in Bellefontaine. And when we left, we went down, thank goodness we went down the tallest hill in Ohio. I can remember passing the vocational school
Yeah.
off to the side there. Yeah.
What is that? Is that actually in Bellefontaine?
Well,
It's
on
right
the
at
east side.
the
Yeah.
east side, yes.
Yeah.
But now let me tell you, because of the Bellefontaine Airport, we have a working beacon at our airport in Marion. One night I flew with a friend, we were delivering a plane to Bellefontaine. It was really cloudy. But down through the breaks in the clouds, we could see a beacon turning. And so we get down below the clouds, and there was the airport. At the same time, the beacon in Marion hadn't been turned on or working for years. Two of us went to the mayor, and the beacon was operating within a few days. And it still does.
Well, it should have been, shouldn't it have?
Oh, yes.
Who let it burn out? Which mayor let the
Well,
beacon burn out?
it didn't have any maintenance care.
That's a problem.
You know something, Charlie? Every time a subject is brought up, you know something about it.
I've been around a long
Well,
time.
the thing of it is, your memory is so wonderful. Wow.
Yes.
It really
He
is.
does have a sharp memory.
He does.
Absolutely. We're going to go on to the mailbag question this week. Brenda will join us on this one. I have a 40-year-old daughter who is a single mother with her own 4-year-old daughter. My daughter is contemplating moving in with her boyfriend. I am not in favor of this. I see many problems ahead. Please give me your opinion. Rodney in Upper Sandusky. What do you think, Marianne?
No, you know something, this is so common now. It really is common. Young people live with one another before they're married. I mean, it's not taboo by any means.
Or they never get married.
And sometimes it's been found that if you live with somebody, that you end up not marrying them. That's happened
Right.
many times.
Get to see what they're really like.
But I would not judge a person, but I don't know how to help this person
Well,
out.
if this person has it was Rodney, right?
Rodney.
If he has a 40-year-old daughter, he's really got to have come from the era before living together was
acceptable.
Was acceptable, and so that might be just one of the things
Yes.
that's a problem for him here is that you grow up with this as being a no-no, and now it's yawn.
Yeah,
Next.
now, it's so common.
So I would
Yes.
think if this is all Rodney has to worry about,
And sometimes you find out I suppose when you live with somebody, that person you don't want to marry.
And then again, in the letter, he doesn't say what kind of guy the boyfriend is.
Yes,
or
right.
anything like
Well,
that.
see-
So he kind of leaves out a lot of things that you would know.
Necessary
Yeah.
information.
Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but my problem would be, if I was Rodney, would be that maybe the boyfriend is not going to be as nice to the child when they're 4.
Yes.
I think there should be a rule. This is my own opinion, but I think that you should never have somebody stay the night who's not married in any form or fashion until the child's in school.
Oh, I totally agree with
4
that.
years old, I don't think
Yes,
so.
no, I see your point. Yes, that's not a good idea.
Charlie, what do you think?
That's right. And one of the other things is man and woman living together, and she has had, or he has had, a son or a daughter. How many murders have taken place
Yes.
when the boyfriend gets too irritated, can't control the child, and ends up shaking it, and it dies?
4 years old is too young. If you have a child who's not in kindergarten, I think that's a good cutoff point. If you have a child who's not in kindergarten, your main concern
Should be that child.
be that child. Don't worry about moving somebody in, and especially, and I don't know, but if the father's in the picture, he's going to get angry. And the earliest childhood memory I have is 3 years old. That's as far back as I can remember. So if a new man walked into my life at 4 years old, I think I might have trouble distinguishing between a father and this guy who lives with my mother. What do you think, Charlie?
I think so, but nowadays, you almost, unless you're going to live with all this turmoil in your body, you almost have to give in to the current times, certain things, and not let it bother you.
You had daughters. We talked about this in an earlier episode. 3 daughters. Did any of them, and we don't have to point out specifics here, but did any of them, specific names, did any of them ever do anything relationship-wise that you weren't pleased with? Because you were the father of daughters.
Not exactly. There were a few glitches here and there, but all in all, I still treasure those girls.
Right. Have you liked all the boyfriends?
Not necessarily, no.
When you didn't like one, what'd you do?
I didn't do anything. I just hoped it all work out, that the girl would see the light.
Yes, because sometimes when you object to something, there's
That's right.
more
Ooh.
likely to go
Come on.
against you, and so sometimes you're better off not to say anything.
Marianne, you're on the opposite side of that. You have a son. When he would date somebody, was there ever anybody who you didn't like?
No.
Liked them all.
Yeah, I really did.
And so you've never run into that.
And he dated a lot of girls. Yeah.
There you go. Brenda, boys and girls, daughters and sons. What has your situation been?
Kind of both. There were a couple of each that I wasn't really, should I say, pleased with, but I figured that things would work themselves out if I just kind of was civil and kind and prayed a lot.
There you go. Fritz, what do you make? 5 sons.
5 sons. Well, it wasn't until they were really involved with somebody that I really got to know them. I mean, because again, as a bachelor, you know, the boys dated so many of them I never even met, that it was 2 dates, 3 dates, 4 dates, and bye-bye. But the ones that I met, again, were really nice and enjoyed them all.
Worked out okay, Rodney. Just try to deal with it. Maybe you'll develop a friendship with the guy.
That's right.
Onward and upward.
Well, let me say that my daughter-in-laws and son-in-laws are my favorite people right now.
Oh, that's
There you go.
wonderful.
There you go.
That's
I do want to let the audience out there know if you have a question for the mailbag, you can join us on Facebook under the name Scott Spears, or send it in an email to irmcommunication@gmail.com. One thing I want to do, because before we wrap up today, we got about a minute left. We've been running a campaign here, Brenda. I know you write a column for the paper. What do you think? Fritz the Nite Owl Grand Marshal 2011 Popcorn Parade.
I think it would be perfect with the theme,
And the theme is?
something Hollywood.
Ooh,
It's the
wow.
perfect year.
It certainly is.
All you Popcorn Festival people, we're taking votes. We're taking votes. Brenda will be with us every Thursday to do Brenda Donegan's Ohio. It's always a pleasure, Brenda.
Thank you.
Marianne, Charlie, and Fritz will be back tomorrow. It'll be Friday. We'll be wrapping up the week. This is Scott Spears saying, make it a great one.